Hey guys, Master Sweetness here for the fourth episode of the Logical Paradise Show. Okay, I know at the time of filming this episode, it would have been only about 3 days since episode 3 was posted on YouTube. However, the anticipation is killing me, and while I still encourage you to answer the question I posed in episode 2, I'm just going to present my answer. Just to refresh your memory, here's what the scenario presented in episode 2. 2 Rutgers students have been charged with invasion of privacy for secretly recording another student's sexual encounter with another man and streaming it live online. The student they recorded jumped to his death from the George Washington Bridge the next day. The maximum penalty for such invasion of privacy is 5 years in prison. This incident brings up multiple questions, and now I will share with you my answers to each. Number 1. How serious is such a violation of privacy, or do we now live in a world where video and online culture has made privacy obsolete? There's one important fact that this question seems to overlook. They broke into a person's room. If they were going at it on a park bench or on the sidewalk, then yeah, there was nothing wrong with doing that. But the fact that they had to commit another crime, breaking and entering, in order to catch them in the act in the first place makes the issue of privacy moot. Number 2. Was this an act of homophobia? This first has to assume that the students that made the video knew that the 2 men, or at least one of them, were gay. However, it is a safe assumption to make given the way the students used the video as an object of ridicule. So ultimately, whether the students were homophobic or not is irrelevant, as the actions they took after the incident are clearly homophobic. Number 3. Is the possible 5-year penalty appropriate, and are the students partially responsible for a death? I lump these two questions together because they are asking practically the same thing. No, the penalty is not appropriate because I believe the students are not just partially, but fully responsible for the victim's death. Let's look at the legal definition of murder. Now, according to U.S. law, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. Just when you think something like murder can easily be defined in a court of law, you stumble on a phrase like malice aforethought. So what is malice aforethought? Well, there are 4 states of mind that constitute the legal definition of malice. Okay, number 1. Intent to kill. Number 2. Intent to inflict grievous bodily harm short of death. Number 3. Reckless indifference. Reckless indifference to an unjustifiable high risk to human life. Finally, number 4, intent to commit a dangerous felony. This is often called felony murder. Now, obviously, no, the first date is pretty much obvious. You pick up a gun, knife, or a pillow, you take aim, and end their life. The second state, too, is pretty obvious. You pick up a rock or something, you hit them over the head with it, but you don't kill them. But what happens is the victim dies of their injuries. Number 3 is when, for example, you tell your best friend who you know has an explosive temper that his wife is cheating on him with another friend, and he, in his rage, goes out and kills the other friend. There are other situations that qualify. This situation, for example, could possibly fall under that state of mind, but only if the students that made the video knew that the victim that committed suicide was prone to such actions beforehand, because the reckless indifference was certainly there. However, the fourth state is a bullseye, because remember, the students committed a crime, breaking and entering, which is considered the same as burglary in the U.S., which under federal law and most state laws is considered second-degree murder. I believe that these students should be charged with the murder and pay for the consequences in full. The bottom line, while YouTube and other sites give us unprecedented levels of access into the lives of others, generally it is they themselves that provide said access. We do not have a right to go stalking people or any other such nonsense just because we want to make it big on YouTube. Alright, last episode I shared with you my thoughts on our current tax system and stated that in my opinion the best fix for this would be to switch to a federal sales tax. And almost immediately I got a question about my proposal. The viewer asked, let's see if I can pull it up here. He asked, if everything went over to a federal sales tax, wouldn't that just stop people from buying American? They'd buy their 12 houses in a different country, buy business supplies and such from elsewhere. Do you have an increased tariff tax? Then they'll take their businesses to other countries where they are free to make the most profits now. That happens a lot as it is. First, recall that the grid I showed before was limited to just the residential side of the equation. What are we getting into now is the business side. And since it was brought up, let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do on the business side to prevent the scenario that was asked about. So let's say we install a federal sales tax and implement a regulation that prevents anyone from skipping out on paying the tax. So someone, usually a Wesley elite, says, "Screw this, I'm buying my stuff in Germany and avoid that tax." He says as he laughs maniacally, What do we do? If no one buys American, then the country will lose money and we are totally hosed. This problem is already answered by even in the current system in the form of import taxes. An import tax is a tax you pay for shipping something from another country into the United States. So we either have to A, increase import tax, or B, lower, in our hypothetical system here, lower the federal sales tax so that it's below the import tax. Now, increasing import taxes generally is frowned upon by the other countries because they, in turn, have to raise their prices to counteract the tax. But we get a strong deterrent from buying foreign goods. But if you set the federal sales tax too low, the country will still lose money. So the best way is to take some of the middle ground, where we raise the import tax only a little bit, just enough so that when we set the federal sales tax below it, it won't be too low to be ineffective. However, let's not also ignore the fact that countries like Germany, in this example, have property taxes in Germany as well. So, is there really a gain from going to Germany to buy your 12 houses and yachts when it's pretty much the same price or lower still in the United States? Now, a related issue that was brought up out of the question was outsourcing jobs. What the government needs to do, and in fact is trying to do right now, is try to stop outsourcing jobs to other countries. Now, there are two ways to do this. A, impose outsourcing tax. B, give tax breaks and or benefits to those that do not outsource. Now, like I said last episode, businesses hate paying taxes. In fact, from the way they act, they hate paying anything. Whether it's a proper wage, taxes, health insurance, they even find ways to get out of validating your parking. I understand the concept, reducing the cost of business as much as possible so you can get the most profits possible. That is why slave labor reigned supreme for the past 5,000 years. Even when steam power was discovered in the Library of Alexandria, it was much easier to stick with slave labor than make the switch to industrial power. But that is a story for another time. Like I said, they want to reduce costs so they can lower prices to make their products more appealing, and so on. This looks like a good thing, with lower prices for consumers, yet greater profits for the businesses. So what's the problem?